Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank y'all for coming. Today we have Forrest Hamilton from Universal Coin. He's a 3-time bestseller. Real quick, just a reminder though, be sure that you signed in outside and that you also sign out when the seminar is over. Either have your Lamar ID ready or know your L number so we can get that going pretty quickly. So if you'll help me welcome him, he's going to present on how to influence.
I recognize any faces here. Anybody seen me speak before? Raise your hand if you have. Hey, what's up? Got a couple. Okay, good. So I won't bore too many of you. My name is Forrest Hamilton, and I'm the Director of Business for Universal Coin, which is here in Beaumont. I'm going to give you a lot of stuff on how to influence. But this is probably going to be a little different talk than what you're used to. I get a lot of feedback. I do this talk twice a year, and I change it up a little bit each time. But I get a lot of emails from the people sitting in these rooms. Have you guys ever actually emailed, raise your hand if you've been to a Passport, one of these before, so I can get a feel. Okay. Have you ever emailed one of the speakers before? Raise your hand if you have. One. Okay, good. So I like interaction because this is not about me standing up here teaching you something. I have a really nice PowerPoint. In fact, I've done it a couple of times. I'm not doing it today. Because my goal is to really connect with you as much as I can. So you can, if you want, I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to be like checking to see if you're playing on your cell phone. That doesn't matter to me. If you came here for a reason, you probably came to get some credit for a class. Hopefully you walk away with more than that, though. Hopefully you walk away with something that can help change your life and somebody else's, because that's my passion. Somewhere along the way, I went from, well, I'll tell you my story, but I decided that once I got outside of myself, worrying about myself, wishing for things for myself, and I started to help somebody else, bless you. I started to help somebody else, make that be my passion. Everything that I wanted started to come true. Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want. So, today we're going to talk about how to influence. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've accomplished. It is not me bragging. It's very uncomfortable. In fact, I used to not do it. I used to have somebody else do it for me. But I'm going to tell you some things that I've accomplished in my life from where I started to where I am to where I'm going for one purpose. So that you can go, wait a minute, he was there and then he did this. I can do that. That's all I want, is that little flicker in your brain. Because you've been told since you were a little kid, you can do anything. Right? Whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve. But somewhere we kind of stop believing that. Somewhere we get too old to keep dreaming. Right? This is my little girl right here, my youngest. This is Trinity. Oh, can you wave? This is Trinity. Talia Hamilton. All right? So she's Trinity because she's the third. And Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Talia means dew from heaven. I was in Israel. I got baptized in the Jordan River about 5 years ago. And I saw that name. And I just thought, wow, dew from heaven. Right? Okay, so here's my story. My dad was born in Beaumont. He was raised in Waco. Played football for Baylor. Didn't know that, did you? And I'm about to hire somebody that's in here. I interviewed him yesterday. And so he's a football player at Lamar. I currently employ, anybody know Peyton McVeigh? Yeah. Played football for Lamar for a few years. His little brother plays tight end now. He works for me. And my dad played football at Baylor. He was your all-American guy. I mean, 6'4", 250. You know, back then that was like an offensive lineman. You know, now that's like a running back. But he was this, good-looking guy. Had a radio voice, journalism degree. He had everything going for him. And then he went to Vietnam. Those that don't know, do a little research. I mean, you've studied it in school, but just see how they did the drafting. It's pretty interesting psychology. They would draft with your friends. Like your little area code, your zip code, like your friend, you ended up going over, he went over there with like half of his best friends from high school and college he went to Vietnam with. Because they thought you would fight harder for somebody that was your buddy than Joe from Nebraska that you don't even know. Right? Which is kind of messed up, but it makes sense when you're in war. Well, he was a chopper gunner. So he's on the helicopter that would go up, he had the big 50 caliber gun, and he would just, blow up villages or give support for things. He hated it. Those that don't know, I think everybody probably knows in here, you're all educated, but the draft meant he didn't say, hey, I want to go. It meant his number was pulled and they said, you have to come. So he went over, he was shot down 5 times. So imagine being in a helicopter, shooting people that you don't really want to shoot, doing something you don't want to do in a country that you don't want to be in, and then your helicopter gets shot down. 5 times. He was the only survivor of 3 out of the 5 crashes. So now imagine that. You get shot down, your buddies are dead, and you have to somehow get from that helicopter crash site to your LZ, to your landing zone where there's safety. You have to go through the jungle where people are shooting at you and want to kill you. Just imagine that process in your mind. So it wasn't just that, it wasn't like a hero movie where he was getting back to, like, yeah, I made it. He's like, I just lost all my best friends. It was horrific. So he went from that all-American boy to where he loved America, loved everything. He went and became what they call a booney vet. They didn't call it PTSD back then. He went off into the boonies in Washington State and became a literal mountain man. Like, if you write down davidhamilton.com, davidhamiltonwinery.com, write that down and put it in your phone, you'll see a picture of him. He looks like Santa Claus. Now, he's got big long white beard, long white hair. But he went so far up into the mountains because he didn't want somebody to tell him what to do. He stopped allowing influence on his life from the outside because he didn't like how it had gone at the war. So he goes up there, he delivers me when I'm born, out in the woods, no running water or electricity until I'm 15 years old. Think about that for a minute. I mean, I'm 40 years old, so it's not like I'm 80, walked uphill in the snow both ways, barefoot, like your grandparents did, right? But in 1976, no running water or electricity, no Nintendo. My bath would take the water from Stossel Creek, get it out, pour it in, light a fire, heat it up, pour it in something else, take a bath. We don't do that very often. So I'm taking a bath once a week. So now imagine getting on the school bus, and I'm smelling like chickens and rabbits and goats and pigs. I was the stinky kid. I was the easiest target for picking on you can imagine. So part of the reason I do public speaking is because there's not anybody in here that grew up more poor than I did. There isn't one. There's nobody that's been made fun of like me. There's nobody that had a lower self-esteem than me, I promise. I've never met one. And I've met some with pretty low self-esteem. I've worked with a lot of people over the last 20 years on this subject. Mine was as low as it gets. Couldn't look people in the eyes for anything. I would never talk. I'd get on a school bus, I'd get tripped 5 times by the time I got to my seat, because it was easy. I was mad at those kids. And then I figured out they were just kids. I thought they hated me. I started to believe that I was this lesser being. And then something happened. Sports came along. I'd been working on a farm. I had a chainsaw by the time I was 8. So it's like when I was born, I was like another arm for my dad. So I'm cutting down trees and sawing them and stacking them. And we did it all together out there in the woods. So I didn't have a bicycle. We didn't have a car most of the time. So I was either going to hitchhike or I was going to run. Go ahead. Run, Forrest, run, right? But I did. I ran everywhere. I'd run to town. It'd be like 8 miles. I'm going to go to town. I'm going to run. That was it. That was just what I had to do. So when I got into sports, I could run for days. It was pretty fast. I was stronger than my build because all I did was basically work all day long up there. But my dad did something smart. We worked for 6 hours in the morning. Cold, wet. Anybody ever been to Washington State? It is as rainy and cold, and it's nasty. About 1 month a year, it's amazing. But the rest of the time, it just rains. And so he'd say, okay, we've been working for 6 hours. Time to go back out. By the way, it was a broken down logging truck that he built just a little, maybe a 800 square foot house onto. So we called it the house truck. We were very creative. And so that's where we lived. We'd say, hey, you want to go back out for another 6 hours? Or do you want to sit by the fire and read this book? Well, I want to sit by the fire and read the book, right? I want to go work. But he didn't just let me read it and fall asleep. His intelligence was, when he would come in, he'd make me read him or recite to him, tell him who was the protagonist, what did they do. I had to act things out. He was making me express myself. So it was in me, even though if you saw me in public, I was a nobody. I couldn't even speak in class. I was so afraid of getting made fun of. So back to sports. All of a sudden, I'm a freshman in high school. I've never put on a helmet in my life, never played any pee-wee football, didn't have enough money for a baseball glove, so I didn't play any baseball. But now the coaches say, hey, let's do some tryouts. They bring kind of the PE teacher and the coaches would get together so we could find the athletes. And I go out there, and all of a sudden, I'm running faster than anybody. I'm hitting the ball pretty far. I don't know which direction to run with the football, basically, but I can run. And so they put me on the team. They give me the playbook for football. I go home. They just said, hey, you're probably going to be a wide receiver or something like that. Well, I don't really know anything about football, right? I mean, like, I know I thought you got 7 points for a touchdown at the time. I'm a freshman in high school. So I read the entire playbook, every position, every play. Within about a month, I could tell you what the offensive guard or the linebacker was supposed to be doing on every single play. I just thought that's what you did. So I get to suit up. I'm not going to play except on some special teams. And all of a sudden, starting running back breaks his ankle in a game. Uh-oh, now we're down to the sophomore. He tears his knee up, second quarter. Does anybody know the plays? The coach goes, does anybody else know the running back plays? I'm like, I do, coach. So he puts me in. Score a touchdown, my second run. It's like a 30-yard touchdown. End up scoring 4 touchdowns that game. All of a sudden, the guys that were making fun of me, that were using me as a tackling dummy earlier in the week, are lifting me up on their shoulders. I go from the dirty kid to homecoming king in a matter of months. Well, how does that happen? Did I become different? I become different, right? How people viewed me is what became different. My influence, my ability to influence them, started to change when I started to have some success. So part of what we're going to talk about today is don't allow your circumstances to dictate your level of confidence. Don't allow your past to dictate your present or your future unless it's a positive thing. The 2 most dangerous words in the English language are yeah, but. Yeah, but. Because here's what happens in your brain. You ever made $1 million in a year? Okay. Anybody make $1 million in a year? I'm going to give you my business card if you did. But here's what happens. I sell gold. I do gold investments, right? So in your mind, does anyone in here truly believe that you're going to make $1 million in a year at any point? So I got 5. Went up pretty quick. A few others. Okay. So the majority, I would say, do not believe that that's even a potential for them. Because here's why. If I said, hey, you're going to make $1 million this year while you're still in school, your brain's going to go, yeah, but and then it's going to fill in all the reasons why not. It's going to say, I'm still in school. I don't have a job. Even if I have a job, it doesn't pay that. It's going to give you all the reasons why. And here's what happens in our brains. We have so much influence. We are the greatest salesmen in the world to ourselves. The problem is, it's usually not focused on the right things. It's usually focused on, how do I get up in time to get to class? Or how do I get by? There's so much getting by. We all have a passion, but we don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to continue the story so you can follow along. So I become pretty popular, sports, all that. All of a sudden, things start to change. I become a made-for-TV movie. I mean, I leave my, the friends that were my friends before, I leave them behind. Now I'm hanging out with all the jocks and cheerleaders, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like that kid on the Lifetime TV show. I mean, I've lived that life, right? And all of a sudden, the old friends are mad at me. My new friends are like, hey, you're awesome. And I don't want any friends. So for half a year, my junior year, I went off the map. I was mad at everybody. I had a midlife crisis as a junior in high school. Because I didn't believe that I was different. I believed I was the same, but I was just mad at everybody because of how they treated me. And I just didn't want anything to do with anybody. And I went to my mom and I was like, I just can't believe the way they're treating me. And she says, would you have done anything different? I would have never done that. Are you sure? And I realized that it's roles were reversed. If I grew up middle class and I was trying to be cool with the other kids, there's a good chance I'm going to make fun of that other kid. It's an easy target. It's an easy laugh. It's an easy little boost in your social mindset. And so I forgave everybody. And my senior year was awesome. My senior year, remind me, this is over 20 years ago, but I was a senior in high school. But it was awesome because I became friends with every group. I went out of my way to become friends with the kids in the band, with the kids on the team, with the nerds that nobody wanted to talk to. I'm going and sitting with, it's not because I was necessarily a great guy, it's because I had just gone through something traumatic. I had just been through the worst of the worst, and I had experienced both. So it gave me this really cool thing called perspective. The more perspective you can get, like travel. If you're going to decide between buying a nice car and going to travel, go travel. I've been all over the world, and it'll change how you view people. It'll change how you view yourself, because once you get out of, I call it Beaumont mentality. I've been in Beaumont for 20 years. But when you get out of Beaumont mentality, it's a small town. I grew up in a town of 1,000 people. I could say Duval, Washington mentality. But Beaumont mentality, people get stuck. When you get outside of it and you see, like, race goes away, religion goes away, when you start to see people of different cultures doing things for other people, it changes how you view those people. All right, so I actually came to Lamar to play baseball. I had a scholarship offer to play baseball at Lamar. Came here, and I was still so backwoods that when I came here, coach said he was going to redshirt me, and all I heard him say was, "You're not good enough to start." I didn't even know what redshirt meant. And I didn't have enough lifelines, enough people I trusted, that I didn't just go to somebody and say, "Hey, what does redshirt mean?" Like, I'm going to get to dress, I'm part of Lamar University. I have a scholarship. I quit the team. I quit because I thought I wasn't good enough. I judged myself. So the second thing you should write down is have lifelines that you can trust, and don't be embarrassed about what's going on in your life. Like, have somebody that you can just ask that has knowledge. Of course, I didn't have Google back then. I probably could have Googled it, But have somebody that you really trust in your life. If you don't have one, go get one. I recommend having about 5 really, really good lifelines. Which brings me to this. I got out of playing baseball, stopped playing baseball, left Lamar, was here about 8 months or so. Didn't even finish a whole year of college. Stay in school, finish college. But I said, I want to go make money. That was my thing. I want to never have to be poor again. So I started working, did everything from, I coached gymnastics, I sold cars, I was, I did every little job you could do. Pushing a lawnmower didn't matter. If I could get paid, I was doing it. Because I had this fire. I wanted to be rich. But really, I just wanted to be free. I wanted to not have somebody tell me what I could or couldn't do. What I could wear, didn't have to wear, where I could go, where I couldn't go. I wanted to be able to manage that myself. Well, finally, I find this gold company, Universal Coin, and I start working there as a teenager. I'm 19 years old. And I start doing well. Made over $100,000 my first year there. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind so much I quit. Imagine making $100,000 in a year and then quitting. Why? Why do you think I quit? Anyone know? Anybody got a guess? Because I didn't think I was worth $100,000. I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to have freedom. But because I was still dealing with all my childhood stuff, even though I was managing and had perspective that senior year, I still didn't really think I was worth it. Here's what happened. I looked at what my mom and dad made. They made about $15,000 that year combined in 1996. And I made over $100,000. I thought, something must be wrong. Something must be wrong with this job. Something must be wrong with this world. I went really hard on my mindset. So I quit. Started doing some other jobs, went and pounded the pavement, sold cars again, hated that. Don't ever sell cars, I don't recommend it. But I realized it wasn't about the job, it was about me. So I came back, 1999. 3 years later, I came back. I've been there ever since. So I've been there for 16 years now. And the key to this whole story, and slowly elongate it, because I really want you guys to try to follow the whole steps. Every one of my failures and every one of my successes came down to what I was thinking about myself. So if you don't have awareness, if you don't have consciousness about what you're thinking about yourself, like do a 10-step breakdown of yourself. I know it's not like it's not homework, it's not a project, but take the time, write down, like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? What do you love about yourself? What do you dislike about yourself? Because what will happen is, it's not very comfortable to do it. And then here's probably maybe the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Make a goal list. Make a dream list of what you want to accomplish. And if you just wave a magic wand and do anything in the world, write it down. Make 10 things. 10's a great number. And then on that list of 10 things, like, it can be crazy. It can be like, you should see my bucket list. It's like ridiculous, like walk on the moon stuff. People laugh at my bucket list, right? And I'm going to get to, I went from 0 things on my bucket list to 26 things in 1 year. Like crazy things, because of how I looked at this list. So write down your list of things that you want to do in your life, that you truly wish you could do if there was no limitations to it. And then post it up somewhere so you look at it every day. So here's what happened. I started making money. I was doing well, but there was something missing. There was something that was still, there was a hole. So I started listening to Brian Tracy. I don't know if somebody's ever read or listened. He has 60 best-selling books. He wrote something called Psychology of Achievement, which I listened to it on cassette tape back in the day. And it blew my mind because it said these little words. It said, you become what you think about. That's it. You become what you think about. Your dominant thoughts become your reality. Whatever. Yeah, right. If that was true, everybody would be rich. But then he said, right after, they said, I know you're thinking, yeah, but everybody would be rich if that was the case. No, it's because people quit. People stop believing they can go do it, and so they follow the path of least resistance. So I start reading all of his stuff. I mean, I read every book he has. I study it, because I'm thinking this guy went from, didn't graduate high school, to multi-millionaire, like 100 millionaire kind of guy. He gets paid $50,000 an hour to speak on the stage. What? Here's how I know. After reading his stuff, started becoming more successful, started a couple of my own businesses, and I wanted to reach out and thank him. So I called his offices in Solana Beach, California. I said, Brian Tracy, please. Do you have an appointment? No, I don't. Oh, okay, well, it's $50,000 an hour. You can set up an appointment. I'm like, I just want to say thanks for his Psychology of Achievement. And I studied his stuff, and it's really helped me. Well, you can go to one of his events. They're like, I don't want to go to his event. I don't want to be a face. So here's where influence came in. For the next 3 months, I essentially stalked him over the phone. I would call his offices a few times a week. I got to know every person that was in his office. I knew his director of events. I knew his secretaries. I knew his wife's name. I mean, it was like borderline stalking. But my end game was, I wanted to meet the guy. And I wanted to do it my way. I didn't want to spend $10,000 and go to a seminar and spend all this. I wanted to be somebody that he noticed. So that and I really just wanted 15 minutes. My wife's right here. Her name's Stormy. I'm Forrest. She's Stormy. Those are our real names, right? But I told her, I said, I need 15 minutes with him. If I can just get 15 minutes with him, I just feel like we're supposed to work together. So for 3 months, I'm trying. Well, I get a phone call from Taya, Brian's director of events. She says, Brian wants to meet you. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? She says, well, he's got this inner circle. It's $100,000 a year for 12 people to be in his inner circle. And they go to one place every quarter. They go to this place, they meet, they spend 4 days together, all day long, dinners, lunches, breakfast, sit in a boardroom, discuss business. He helps you with your businesses. I'm thinking, how much is this going to cost? She says, no, all you have to do is pay for your airfare. Your hotel's taken care of, your food's taken care of, and I'm just so skeptical at this point. And I got on speaker, and she was like, say yes. And I'm on my mind, even with all the work I had done, I doubted it. Yeah, but popped into my head. Yeah, but there's probably going to be 50 of me that are there, and then it's going to be a big sales pitch to us, and I'm going through this process. Finally, I just go, okay, I'm in. So I fly up to New Mexico, I walk into this little cocktail area, and he goes, you're the guy that's been charming all my secretaries. And I laugh, and I said, I just want to meet you, sir. And he's like, well, you're young. Can you help me with this iPad? I mean, he's just a normal guy, right? Doesn't know how to, he's like in his 60s, doesn't know how to use iPad. So I'm helping him, and I tell him my story, and we hit it off. We spent 4 days next to each other. I studied, by the way, I had like 3 days before I went. I re-listened to everything to where I could basically finish this guy's sentences. I did the preparation, which is a big part of influence. I prepared my tail off. Well, by the end of it, at the end he went and shook all of his inner circle people's hands, and he came and gave me a hug. And he said, you know, about 100 times a year I meet someone and they say, I'm going to be the next Brian Tracy. He said, but once every 10 years I meet somebody and I think they should be the next Brian Tracy. And Forrest, that's you. I'm like, I'm bawling, you know. He says, how'd you like to write a book with me? And I'm like, what? With Brian Tracy? So that's what this book was. So we write this book. Look at that shaggy hair. That's me right there. Yeah. The long hair, right? Trying to channel my inner Brad Pitt. So we write this book together. And I was terrified. I love to write. I write pretty often. I write articles and write a lot at our offices. What happened is I realized like millions of people could read this. And so this pressure started coming on me. I had like spent 3 straight weekends, like 12 hours a day in my office, at my house, just pouring over it. Nothing's coming out. I'm just terrified. And Stormy comes in and says, he asked you for a reason. You can do this. Just write your story. Just write what you feel. Just write what you teach. And it was like this little moment unlocked. Back to influence. She influenced me. Allow the people that care about you to influence you. And then I let myself be influenced. So I write this part. 24 hours after it's released, it becomes a #1 Amazon.com bestseller. It was really cool. I was like, what? We're a bestseller? That's awesome. What does that mean? I have no idea what that means, right? It just means that it was the #1 book in that entire self-help category of business or whatever for that day. Awesome. What does that mean? All of a sudden I start getting phone calls, do radio shows, do TV shows, write other books. It's this whirlwind, right? And I'm still like, I'm not a writer. I'm giving him all the credit, mentally. Oh wait, it's a bestseller because of Brian, right? And then he calls me and says, hey, how'd you like writing another book? I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of scary. He goes, no, it's called The Only Business Book You'll Ever Need. And you're going to be the gold guy in it. It's going to be with, and he says, who would you want to be in a book if you could write a book with some people? Because what we're going to do is, we're going to go reach out to these people and see if they want to write a chapter. And I'm thinking, this would be a cool way to meet some people, right? So I picked Lee Steinberg. Anybody knows, anybody see Jerry Maguire? So Jerry Maguire is essentially based on a true story about Lee Steinberg, the #1 NFL agent of all time. Troy Aikman, Roethlisberger, Warren Moon. I mean, he had 7 or 8 #1 NFL draft picks, most ever. And then his whole career crashed because of drinking. Just shows you what you can do. I mean, he used to throw these like $5 million Super Bowl parties, right? But I love the guy because I love Jerry Maguire and I love the NFL. So I'm like, that'll be one. He's like, done. I'm like, done? Like, you just make it happen. He's like, yeah, I know him. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What about Robert Allen? Write down the title, Multiple Streams of Income. Everybody should write that down. Just put it in your phone. That little bitty book changed my mindset about how to invest. Right? He's like, yeah, absolutely, I know Bob. Bob, right? So we did this whole list. He gets every one of them. Every single one of them he gets, except Bill Gates. He couldn't get Bill Gates. So, or maybe he didn't like him, I don't know. So we write this book. It becomes a bestseller. So all of a sudden, now I'm a 2-time bestseller in 2 years. And I don't really, if you ask me how do you publish a book, I would have no idea. I was able to utilize my influence, my passion about this man to go connect with someone successful who's really good at something. Then that influence and that passion turned into something I always dreamed of, which was on my bucket list, which was to write a book. And then that turned into something else. Now I was able to start a movie company. We do anywhere from $500,000 to $3 million movies. So I'm sitting on the set one day in Hollywood, and I'm standing there, and I've got Nikki Reed from Twilight. I don't know if anybody's seen the Twilight movies, but she was the blonde-haired sister in the Twilight series. Jason Priestley from 90210, Thomas Dekker from Transformers and 22 Jump Street, and what else was he in? Wolf on Wall Street, quite a few movies. Scott Bakula. I mean, it's like this amazing cast. And I'm standing there, and these actors are just like walking back and forth, and I'm thinking, how did I get here? How did I get here? The answer was, somewhere along the way I figured out, because I've got a winery, I've got a real estate business, I figured out that business is like an equation. Relationships are an equation. You ever heard the saying that love is a language and math is a language? So what I realized is if those are true, because I used to be terrible at math, and then somebody said, oh, math's just a language. And I stopped saying, I'm bad at math. Because that's what I used to say, I'm bad at math. I'm bad at math. Well, I'm reinforcing it. Somewhere along the way they said, oh, it's just a language. And I thought, well, I don't know how to speak French, but if I learned how to speak French, I could do it. So I started studying math with that mindset. All of a sudden I got good at math. It's insane how you can unlock your brain when you choose to influence it. So here's the 2 words that will get you more things in your life than anything else. What and why. What do you want? Be massively and intensely clear about what you want. If I put you in a field with a bow and arrow and I say, go, what are you going to shoot at if you don't have a target? You're not going to get better. You have to have a clear target for what you want. So understand what you want, and then understand why you want it. What you want, why you want it. Seems simplifying it, but I'm telling you, if you'll stick to figuring out what you want. There aren't many things in your life. Right now, I've done this many times in like audiences of a few hundred to 20,000. I can't find anybody who's tried something 1,000 times and didn't accomplish it. Most people can't think of something that they've tried 100 times and didn't accomplish it. We just give up way before that. So be clear about what you want. Be clear about why you want it. And then what happens is all the little obstacles, all the yeah buts, they go away. They just disappear. So that's the story with the books. Oh, the third one, anybody ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? Cool. Anybody else? Did you raise your hand? Okay, so one or two. Other than the Bible, because I think all self-help books are just watered down Bible, regardless of your religion, there's so many good things that are in there. But this book, Think and Grow Rich, the original, the greatest book on how to manage your mind, how to have success really, really in a big way, mastermind theories. I mean, there's so much in the original. So I read the original and loved it because it's about a story about a man who interviewed the greatest minds in American history that started with nothing and became multimillionaires. You know, Edison, Ford, Wanamaker, Wrigley, Edward Jones, like all these guys that basically built America. He spent 20 years studying them, living with them, interviewing them. And when he did that, he then spent the next 5 years writing a book that detailed all the commonalities between their successes. So it wasn't about, because, I mean, I don't know, think about the person in your life that you, whether it's an actor or whether it's an athlete. Anybody get starstruck in here? I used to get really starstruck. If Tiger Woods walked in, if somebody like that walked, Ken Griffey Jr. for me was like that athlete, right? It was like I would freak out because I would put these people on pedestals. I would put them on this pedestal and I would think, I can't be them because they were born with these natural gifts. They were inherited this money, whatever. So as soon as you can stop putting people on a pedestal and you can start realizing they're just like me, they're just like you. What happens is the difference in their mind, they stayed a little longer on what they wanted and why they wanted it. I'm looking at a sea full of people right now, a group of people. Some of you are going to leave here and go, yeah, that makes sense. That's good head nod and stuff. Some of you are going to go, you know what, I'm changing. Only the ones that make a decision to change are going to be able to do anything with this. Otherwise, it's a good story that you got to hear about. So, what time is this over? 30? Okay. So here's what I'm gonna offer you. I do mentorships, but I don't do very many anymore because I've done these for a while. I used to put my cell phone number up on a board, and then people would I'd get so many phone calls and emails. So what I do now is I'm going to give you my email. In fact, I'm going to give these 3 books away at the end of the session. And on here is my email. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. In fact, I'm going to give you a better one. Write down Forrest, Forest, at foresthamilton.com. Forrest at foresthamilton.com. And I challenge you to put your thoughts together and either send me a question. I give you my word, I will answer one question from each of you. But you're going to have to email me 3 times, not at the same time, on different days before I'll return your email. If you don't think I can help you in some way, don't waste your time. But if you think maybe a 5-minute conversation with me or a 15-minute conversation with me or a year with me could help you, email me. I've hired multiple people from this class after they graduated that now work for me. Because what happens is as a mentor, I know what you're going through. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. It doesn't matter. I know what you're going through somewhere in your life because I've studied human psychology. I've studied human nature. I love to study it because it's so interesting to me. So here's what happens. If you know, let's say you're a junior and you're going to graduate not this May but next May, and you know you want to be in business, I'm not just trying to get you to come work for me. I don't have enough spots for that. But what I can do is I can help keep you from making some mistakes that you might have made. Because I've made them. And I've been around a lot of people that I coach and that I mentor that have made it. So if you'll email me one question, and or if you'll email me, I'd love to see your like top 10 list. I haven't done this before. Send me that list of the things that you dream of. You could wave a magic wand. Because what's going to happen, you're going to get embarrassed or you're just, you're too busy. Here's what I can guarantee you. If you'll email me that, and then you try 3 times, because I will not return your email until you try 3 times, because it'll show how much you care. I've only had 4 people that ever really did it. I ended up hiring all of them, because it shows that you're willing to put forth some extra effort. Stay on task. Yes.
Do you want these emails to be different emails or just the same over?
Whatever you want. I'm not going to give it too much structure. I recommend it. I would say a little different, but it doesn't have to be much. It really doesn't have to be, don't spend hours on this. But here's what's going to happen. In your mind, you're either saying, oh, I'm going to do that because that'll help me. Or in your mind, you're going, who's this guy? I think I'm going to email him and he's going to help me in some way. Their influence is the most, I would rather have the power to influence than a superpower. It is the currency of life. What I am able to do with other people because of my network of other people, I can't even tell. Like, I'm not special by any means, any more special than any person in here. That we're all special. But I'm not. Don't put me on a pedestal. Because here's what happens. Anytime I want to do something, I just reach out to my network. Like I said, I wanted to get into movies. Reached out within a year. We had our first movie in theaters. I wanted to get into real estate. I just reached out with my network. Before you know it, I had the perfect little angle for that. Well, you may not be ready for all that business acumen. You may not be ready for that level of push into your life. But I can guarantee you that if you'll just learn this one lesson, which is it's not about what you know, and it's not even about who you know. It's about what is your influence on those people that you do know. Without it, you've got nothing. You can have a lot of money, and you got no influence. You can have no money and have a lot of influence. So I'm going to open this up to some questions because usually I cut that short and I have a lot of people that wish we had a little bit more time. The book that I study a lot on influence is by Robert Cialdini, Cialdini. That book is phenomenal. It's just called Persuasion. That's just called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. So that's usually part of what I speak on. I'll let you guys read that on your own, but it'll show you how to influence people when you're doing interviews, show you how to influence people in a relationship. When I hire people, because what I do at Universal Coin is I bring in a broker, whether it's male, female, it doesn't matter. When I hire them in, they work for me for 1 year. That means you're with me for 8 to 12 hours a day, about 15 days a month, because I travel about a week a month around the world. And then you I learn about you, you learn about me, and then I'll take you through a year's worth of learning about sales, learning about how to be a professional, about business, and you get paid an hourly amount that goes up as it goes. After that, if you'd like to be a full-time sales broker at Universal Coin, that's what we also offer. It's very good money in that, very good long-term career insurance, things like that. This isn't a pitch for the business, but just wanted you to know what's available. So, let's just open it up. What questions do we have? Yes?
So your company sells coins, like gold coins and whatnot?
Correct. Gold and silver investments and collectibles. So,
Are you just located here in Beaumont, or is it?
we're the 3rd largest retail gold company in the United States. We do about $100 million a year, but it's not obviously to Beaumont people only. We are the official gold expert for the National Rifle Association. Again, back to influence. It's about finding people that can benefit you and that you can benefit them. When you give them value and they give you value back, not everybody believes in guns, right? A lot of people have the wrong mindset about what the NRA is about. But the NRA is about protecting freedoms, and it's about having the ability to have a group of people that stand up for the Constitution. So we realized they did something called, one of their mottos was like God, Guns, and Gold. And we're thinking, how are we not connected with these people? They have 5 million members that are very, very loyal. So again, influence comes down to not just my influence with one person, but if you can get an influence with an entire organization, change your world, right? So we do gold and silver investments. So basically, I go into my office. I just left my office to come here. And I sit in an office, got a group of 5 different trading floors, about 20 men and women that work on each trading floor. And then we have clients that call us to invest in gold and silver. And then we make outbound phone calls. They call in, and then you get a percentage of that as a commission. That answer your question? Okay. Next question. Oh. Yes.
What brought you to Beaumont?
To play baseball at Lamar. And then I had family, I had an uncle here that was an entrepreneur. And I got to watch him basically pick whatever he wanted to do in his life. And he was an accountant, so it's good to have a hub. Like I could go do a lot of things. I've been offered jobs to go all over the place. And I chose to stay in Beaumont, which seems strange when I've been able to go to, I've skied in Japan, and I was in Scotland and Ireland and London and Paris all within the last year. I mean, I get to go places because of the freedoms, because of the work that I put in, that I'm getting to enjoy it now. But my hub is not just about a house in Beaumont. It's about a community. It's about back to my network. My strength is here. I have family here, 20 plus years in this business. So Universal Coin is my primary business, and it's my family. From there, I've learned I don't have to leave there to go pursue my other dreams. I can do it through this business. Anybody ever watched the TV show Shark Tank? So I got to go on Shark Tank last year and spent 15 hours filming with Damon John, some of the other sharks. 15 hours of filming in Utah. I was on Stormy Night. We were on there for like 15 seconds. So, TV, it's cool and it's glamorous and it's exciting, but it's very much, it's very fake. Just so you know. But what I figured out is that was something I wanted to do. And so, if you can, once you're in your circle, what I did is I thought, I told her, I said, no, I want to be on Shark Tank. But I didn't have a product to sell. So then I started just kind of putting that out there. Man, I want to be on Shark Tank. I'd talk to people that I know, and they'd be like, yeah, man, me too. And then one day, my buddy who was in the CIA, I see him speak on stage. He does this survival course. His name's Jason Hansen. And he does this 10 years in the CIA, and now he teaches people how to, break out duct tape. Or, at this point, when I was on Shark Tank, they put me in a trunk of a car with a bag over my head, with handcuffs on, and all I had was a bobby pin in my pocket. And the car's moving 30 miles an hour, and in 20 seconds, I picked the lock on the handcuffs, pushed the button, and jumped out of a moving car. That's what you saw on Shark Tank, was me rolling away, right? Well, that's what he taught me. He teaches how to not get into trouble, and then if you're in trouble, how to get out. He does a 3-day course in Vegas, where you teach, for the first 2 days, they teach you all this stuff, like how to hotwire a car, and all how to pick a lock. All this stuff that in case you're in trouble, how to get out of it. The 3rd day, they kidnap you. And they take you down on the strip. And you have to basically do that. You get out of the car, and then you have to complete missions for 5 hours all over the Las Vegas Strip. So you've got all these missions that you got to do, and there's hunters and trackers. The trackers are up on top of the buildings with binoculars, and they're radioing to the hunters. If the hunter touches you, you're dead. Game over. You got to either start over or the game's over, depending upon how long it is. If they don't touch you, if you get all the way through and you get to the final mission, you don't have to pay for the $2,500 course. So there's a lot of motivation to do it, and plus I'm ultra competitive. So you got these people, and I'm having to change clothes and go inside, because they know you're gonna have to go find a water source, and some of the things that they teach you, to go and navigate using only the sun, and some of the stuff that they teach in the course is just, it's unbelievable. But I met him, went through that process, and I said, man, I would like to work with you somehow. You write this newsletter that goes out to 20,000 people. Can I write a column in it? I won't charge you. Notice how I worded that. I'm going to write a column in your newsletter, and I won't charge you to do it. Well, it's like saying, hey, New York Times, can I write a column? They're going to say, no. But what happened is by me saying, I'm not going to charge you, it elevated the value of what I was giving him immediately. He's like, oh, because at first he'd be like, oh no, but wait, he's not going to charge me. Well, must be value there. Just small psychological techniques that he then said, well, yeah, you can do an article. And I was in. And then in the article, at the very end of it,
He only meant one time.
yeah, he said one article. But at the end of my article, I put, in next month's article, I'll be talking about this. And it was like the best subject possible, right? You know, that really made him look good. So it's back to influence. Well, now I've been in there for 2 years. And he got on Shark Tank. He was able to get a deal with Damon. And so I started emailing. I was like, hey, if you ever, when you do your follow-up episode, I'd love to, be there if you need anybody. Boom. I'm one of 6 people. Stormy and I are one of, 6 groups that got to go on there. Well, sounds weird, right? Hey, I want to be on Shark Tank. And all of a sudden I am, and I don't even have a product. That's how this world works, though, y'all. It really, let you, whatever you want, if you'll just put it out there and keep it in your consciousness and keep thinking, I'm going to get there. I don't know how, but I'm going to get there. And then keep studying it. It's like, if it's been done before, you can do it. And if it hasn't been done, you can be the first to do it. And it's hard to live like that. It's hard to think that way consciously because most people don't. But it's like, I live such a fun life. I really do. And it's available for everybody. Yours may not be that. There's times where I just want to go up in the mountains. We've got a 160-acre ranch in Oregon. It's got horses and, we've got solar power and still got the outhouse. I make the kids use the restroom. They have to use the outhouse at least once a year so they know what Dad had to go through. But it's beautiful, It's just gorgeous. You're above the clouds. The clouds are like rolling in underneath you in the valley. I mean, there's times that's all I want to do. And I do that for a few weeks, and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go do something else. Imagine having that life. Imagine saying, hey, I want to, like I said, I'm going to walk on the moon. Everybody's like, oh my God. You should have more realistic things in your life. No, I'm going to go in space. I told my oldest daughter's 8. I told her when she's 18, I'm going to take her into space. Well, am I lying to my kid? No, I'm going to find a way. So then my mind goes, well, who knows how to go to space? So I'm like, Richard Branson, right? He's got this whole galactic thing, Virgin Galactic, where they're giving away, it's $400,000 to go into space. I'm like, I'm going to pay for that. But I start reaching out. I want to meet Richard Branson. I got an invitation about a month and a half ago. Hey, would you like to write a book with Richard Branson? I'm like, how did that happen? Because I put it out there. Because it was what I wanted was important. Why I wanted it was important, and it's like magic. It is, I cannot tell you, it's like magic. Yes?
Looking at your life now and what you've accomplished, not even just thinking about the scholarship that Lamar offers you, would you have finished school?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have finished school. My grandparents wanted me to finish school so bad. I was, to me, it was like, I liked school because it gave me a lot of confidence when I was young. That was like the only thing I had confidence in before sports came along. But if it weren't for baseball and what happened with baseball, I'm sure I would have finished, got my degree, and moved on. I think the key to why college is important isn't even so much what you learn. I gotta be careful. I'm at Lamar University, but it's about it is about completion. It's about seeing something through. It's about the pain of sacrifice. Y'all are sacrificing something right now. You're sacrificing years of your life, of your youth, and you're not just doing it to get a paper. If you're doing it to get the paper at the end so that you can then get the job, it's the wrong reason. If I could go back, I've probably read enough and studied enough to get 4 master's degrees, in what I've actually studied. It just hasn't been in the walls of a university. So I, at some point, will. I'll have a doctorate in something, probably in psychology or something along those lines. But it's not because I want the paper. It's because I want the study in a way that can help me with my what and my why. That's the difference, right? Right now, I think we do school backwards a little bit. We do it when we feel like we have to instead of when we really want to, but as of now, it's the best system there is. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
What's on your top 10 list?
Well, let's see. Go to the moon is number 1. What happened is I was in Japan. I started a company called Poor Kid Enterprises. And it was just something that I wanted. There was 3 of us that were pretty poor growing up, and we wanted a business together. And we always said if we ever got out of that little valley that we would still work together. So we incorporated this business, didn't really have a meaning behind it. And then that's what spawned off Poor Kid Films, Poor Kid Real Estate. It's what kind of started everything. Our winery, everything kind of came from that desire, what we wanted, right? And then we're in Japan. We're on this bullet train doing 200 miles an hour, going to ski in Nagano, and Kyoto. I mean, it's just like this amazing trip with these other guys. And I said, hey, do you guys have a bucket list? Because I'm like teaching them, right? And they're like, yeah, I've done half of mine. And I'm looking at mine, and all of a sudden I'm like, I haven't done any of mine. Because what was happening is I was putting them on here, and I was doing the if-then principle. Well, if I retire, then I'll do that. Or if I get more time, then I'll do that. And it kills you. You can't do that. You can't have if-then. You have to be able to say, all right, here's the things on my bucket list, and then here's what changed. Because on that trip, I used some of Brian Tracy's thinking, and I circled 10 things that I wanted to do. Then I pulled 3 of those 10 things out, and I put a deadline on them. Deadlines are massively important. Otherwise, you're not losing if you don't do it if you don't have a deadline. If it's a dream, that's one thing. You put it on paper, now it's a goal. Give it a commitment and a deadline, now it's actually something you can achieve. So mine are, I did 26 things that next year after I created the deadline. 26 of my 80 things on my bucket list. And they were like, some of them were insane. Going to Scotland with my dad. Okay, so here's mine. Australian walkabout. I gotta do that, right? Go to Vietnam with my dad. Because he wants to go there to heal. I just took him to Paris. We ate lunch on the Eiffel Tower and went into the Louvre and Arc de Triomphe. Stonehenge is awesome, but it's kind of just rocks in a field. It's like there's some things that are totally amazing, like Paris was far exceeded my expectations. London wasn't a big fan of. Scotland was amazing though. We spent 12 days all over Scotland, castles, and this place called Isle of Skye is like, it feels like you're in Lord of the Rings movie. I mean, it's just the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Okay, so Vietnam with my dad. I'm gonna go on an African photography safari, right? I'm just not big into killing things. I'm like NRA, and I don't like to kill stuff. It's just not my thing. Oh, I mean, I'll do it. I'll go duck hunting here or there if I'm with a group of clients, but it's just not what I love. But I love nature. I love travel. I love photography. So I'm going to go on an African safari. Well, I was just in Dallas speaking at the Dallas Safari Club. I did a presentation, hour-long presentation there. And then at the end of it, all of a sudden, I'm signed up. The guy says, hey, you want to go with me? I got an extra spot. You don't have to pay anything. I paid $25,000 for this African safari. You can just come along. It's like it was just handed to me. It's back to, I put it on the list. I put this on this list 3 months ago for the safari, and then it's like it just was delivered. It seems weird. I know I don't get kind of out there a little bit with it, but it's how you let me. I want to go to the North Pole, South Pole, and I want to do some things like I have to play Augusta. I played St. Andrews last year. Yeah, it was on my bucket list to play. I'll try to finish with that story because it's getting close to the 1:30 time frame. So we go to Scotland. It's really for my dad. His health's getting pretty bad. I'm pushing him in a wheelchair most of the time. We're in Edinburgh, is what they call it, but you would say Edinburgh, but they say Edinburgh. And so we're there for 2 days, and I'm like, Dad, we got to go to St. Andrews. I got to at least see it, because I'm just I just love golf. And always dreamed of playing on the PGA Tour, and just never figured that out. That's on my bucket list, is to play on the senior tour, by the way. So we go to St. Andrews, and we're only there for a few hours, and I'm like, you got to have a tee time a year in advance. There's just no way, And then I go down to the pub, and I'm like, how do I get on? How do I play round of golf tomorrow? If I was just going to play, they're like, oh no, you have to have a tee time like a year in advance, or you have to be friends with a member. It's just impossible. And I'm like, well, there's no way to get on? And they're like, well, you could go down to the old pavilion, which is where the starters booth is. And if you get there about 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're early enough, then they'll filter in about 4 or 5 people. So let's say there's a threesome of people. You're the 4th, you get to go play. But there you can't take a restroom break. You can't you have to wait all day until your turn is called, and get there at 3 in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. So I go down there. I go at 1 a.m. This is like 2 hours after I found this out. I'm at the pub. We're at the Hamilton pub, and 2 hours later, I had to write my article anyway. So I go, get in line, and I'm sitting there. There's nobody there, and it's dark. And I'm in Scotland, and I'm doing this article, and I thought, oh, they got me. This was like a tourist trick. I'm thinking to myself, because there's nobody there, By 1:45, there were 60 people in line. Oh my gosh. Well, I didn't wait till 3, right? Another good lesson, right? If somebody tells you something, do a little better than what they tell you. by 6 a.m., there was like 190 people had lined up for this thing. It's like all the way around the corner. They still got the grandstands up from the British Open and all that. I'm first in line. Here's the problem. The guy next to me says, hey, you got your handicap card? I'm like, oh, I hurt my neck, so I've been playing golf. I don't have a handicap. He goes, yeah, you have to have a signed thing from your local pro. I'm like, oh well, guess so. No. So I'm calling my buddies that are golf pros back in Beaumont, Beaumont Country Club and Terrell Park, and I'm like, I need your help. And they're like, I'm sleeping. I'm trying to. Finally, I get a guy that goes through all the work. He spends 2 hours putting together my handicap, signing it, scanning it, emailing it to me, right? And so I could walk up there and then I locked my wallet in the room. The room is so small, it's like a 6-room hotel on one golf drive. So now I'm trying to figure out all of these, everything's going against me. Well, I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, hey, I just need to run over there and get my wallet. It's been closed. He goes, oh, you're going to lose your spot in line. There's no way. So I go, here. And I gave him a silver coin. I said, if you just hold my line, I'll be right back. And I just left. I just assumed it would work. Came back and he's like, oh, thanks for the silver coin. Hey, we got you in here at 8:30. And I was like, great. I said, I need clubs. You don't have clubs? I don't have shoes either. What? So they take me over. I get my clubs. I get my shoes. And next thing you know, I'm sitting on the first tee, teeing off at St. Andrews. So, my life is filled with those stories. Why? Because I pick things to do that seem like nobody could get to do them. Because that's like the fun, the challenge, and the excitement of it. So, I have to play basketball one-on-one with Michael Jordan. I will too. Play golf with Griffey. He's my favorite player ever. I did these. Run with the Bulls in Spain. I gotta wait until all of our girls graduated. I gotta do one of those bat suits. Same thing with that. In that year, write a book, become a bestseller, see Stonehenge, Niagara Falls, become a millionaire. These are all the things that I checked off that year. Become an international speaker, go to Paris, go to the World Series, coach my kids' sports teams, become an ordained minister, open a restaurant, become a motivational speaker. Let's see here. Some of these are kind of personal, but you get as deep as you can get with these. Have my own website. Some of them were just like things that I really wanted, and I needed to put them down, right? But when I looked at it, there were all reasons why I couldn't. So, all right, last couple questions. And if you need to go, feel free to go. You have my information now. But the next 3 questions, do you get a book? So, yes.
Well, I have a few. Not that I want to be your next 3 questions.
Okay.
But have you met Zig Ziglar?
I have.
Is that Spark?
Yes.
And how do you manage your success in your relationship? Because obviously it's really helpful.
So number 1, I did meet Zig. He was what inspired me to become a motivational speaker. I saw him speak in Beaumont when I was 18, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I wanted to run through a wall. I was like, how does this 75-year-old man have more passion than I've ever even imagined? And I just dreamed, but I said, yeah, but I'm too scared. I couldn't talk in front of 2 people without turning bright red and my palms sweating. They say public speaking is worse fear than death, right? And it was for me, but it just took me a few years. He passed away last year. I went to his church up in Plano. I'm now friends with his son, Tom. So again, that was something that was important to me, and it'll just line itself out for you if you just become passionate about it. This is Spark. I'm not a big, I don't really like network marketing stuff very much. I am a distributor, but I've never signed anybody else up under me because I don't care about that. I love Spark. Spark. Third question, balance. Can we just communicate? When I get home, if I've worked 14 hours or 15 hours, I've been nonstop. I've had one day off this year, kind of thing. But when I get home, I set aside my stuff to what does she need right now? What do my kids need right now? And then I constantly am reprioritizing. If something starts to get in the way of my relationship with my kids or with my wife or with my family, my dad, my mom, because they're only around so long, I remove that. And then I get rid of poisonous people. There's people in your life that no matter how kind you are, or how much you try to help them. At some point, if someone doesn't want to be helped, they don't want to be helped. Okay, you get a book. 2 more questions. Yes.
What's the most interesting group you've ever spoken to?
Most interesting group I've ever spoken to. Oh yeah. I was one of the feature speakers at CanFit Pro, the Canadian Fitness Professionals, the largest fitness group in North America. One of the other speakers was Jillian Michaels. So my wife got to do a workout with Jillian Michaels as part of I talked him into that as part of the package for getting me to come up there and speak, right? And so they're like, they saw me speak at a deal in LA, and they're like, oh, we want you to come speak for our group. I'm like, sure, what is it? And they're like, CanFit Pro. I'm a gold guy. What do you want me to talk about? They're like, you pick it out. And I'm like, okay, how to be financially fit in the economy. That was one of them. How to find your hidden revenue streams and how to build a $100 million business. We're like, okay, we'll pay you for all 3 of them. You know? So that's probably the most interesting group because they're like all wearing, spandex and a lot of muscles. Yes.
Do you consider yourself successful, or do you think you have a lot more room to grow?
Both. I consider myself successful, and I know that I have a lot more room to grow. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's still really small. My success now won't come from businesses. It'll come from watching people like y'all do something with it. That's fire me. Yes.
I was about to ask, what about your children? Would you want them to go to college as well, or would you want them to do the
I'm going to say I would like for them to be constantly learning. Whether that equals college or not, we'll see. My part of what's on my bucket list is to create a school of life, like a thought process and attitude school that views things a little bit differently. But I think the structure of school and the knowledge that you get in school and then the way that the world is currently set up to require certain levels of schooling to get certain places in your life, I think school is important. But it'll be their choice. It won't be something where I say you have to go to college for sure. That's their call. All right. Yes, last question.
You said you're really bad at math and you got good at math. Was there any specific techniques or books that you read that helped you?
I did read a couple of books, like a math shortcut book, and all of a sudden all it did was sort of change my way of thinking that it was hard. But as soon as I decided that it was a language anyway, a lot of that changed. When I started to realize I was going to need math, because I was one of those guys like I'm never going to use this, and now I use it every day. So from that perspective, school is very important. But once that changed and I started applying the what I really wanted in my life and why, math just became kind of natural. But those math shortcut books definitely helped me. And now we're teaching Common Core math, which is very interesting. Anything else?
We homeschool.
We homeschool, yeah. Anything else? Yes, last one.
How do you keep motivating yourself?
By being conscious. We spend most of our lives in a subconscious state. You ever get in a car and then drive somewhere and you don't even remember driving because you were just thinking about a lot of stuff or thinking about nothing? Unfortunately, that's what we do with our lives. You wake up and you're 40 years old and you're like, wow, where did all those years go? So part of my meditation or just quiet time is that I very consciously look at my day. I look at short term, how did today go and how do I want tomorrow to go? Then I'm like, okay, project wise, what else do I really want? And then I'm constantly taking inventory. Like, what makes me feel good, what doesn't. And as long as once you become aware of that, it does. It becomes very easy. It's like, you don't wonder if you're going the right direction. You know, once you're conscious about it. All right? Thank you all very much. And again, Forrest at forresthamilton.com.